start off this morning's plenary session, I am pleased to introduce Mrs. Florence Jacquet. Florence is an agricultural economist and the research director at INRAE. Her research is on agricultural and environmental policies and their impacts on farmers' decisions and practices. She is currently the scientific coordinator of the French Priority Research Program, which is aimed to pave the way towards a pesticide-free agriculture. Today, she will present her paper on pesticide-free agriculture as a new paradigm for research. Please give a very warm welcome to Florence.
Thank you, Jonas. Morning to everyone. I'm very pleased to start this plenary session. So I will present our reflections on pesticide-free agriculture as a new paradigm for research. I will try to explain why we need a change and what does this change mean concretely. So I will not go back of what have been said already on the policies that have been implemented since 2009, if we refer to the Sustainable Use Directive at the EU level. And of course, what is very important now is this new strategy that is in the European Green Deal and Farm to Fork, because minus 50% by 2030 is just very, very short-term objective. So you can see on the graphs that the current reduction trajectory is definitively too slow to achieve the Green Deal objective without a new effort. So we have in France the French National Action Plan Ecophyto, and Madame Soubeyran explained what are the main efforts that have been done in France in this plan. So the first one was in 2008, and 10 years later, clearly, the goal was not achieved because the first goal was minus 50% in 10 years, and the pesticide sales have been increased in 10 years. But new plan is now ongoing, and what we saw when we can see on the graph is that the increase in biocontrol product is very clear, and we have a slight decrease to last year, so we are waiting to see what's going on in 2021, if this increase is confirmed or not. And what is not in the graph, but what is important also, is the decrease in the most worrying substances that is quite strong since the starting point of the plan. But clearly, new efforts, because the new objectives, it is minus 50% by 2025, and 25 is in 3 years, so that means that strong effort is also to be done. So why is it so difficult to reduce the use of pesticides? So I will not go in details in these figures, just to say that you know that farmers' systems, cropping systems have been changed a lot due to the efficiency of pesticides. Pesticides are easy to use, cheap, and very efficient, and it contributed clearly to simplification of cropping system, fewer crops, shorter rotation, larger field, and then more dependent systems that are more dependent to pesticide. What this figure wants to illustrate is in the dependency of the whole food chain from the upstream company to the downstream and to the consumers. And this is what we call a social-technical locking, because it's very difficult to change the whole system when everything is linked. What I would like to stress, and what I will focus on, is that research is not outside of the story. Even strong efforts have been done in research since, let's say, the 90s. Maybe the CAP reform of 92 can be the starting point of preoccupation of health and environment in the objective of research, and the There is a lot of research already ongoing on agroecology, that's very clear. But even in the research system, the idea that pesticide is still perceived as a first element, as a key element of production system, is kind of a break in order to go further on, and that's our main idea that we would like to develop. So, okay, before going to this idea of paradigm shift, just want to tell you what we find when we go inside research project and research results from these projects that have been funded at the EU level in the FP7 Horizon 2020, but also at national level. In the two programs, almost 140 projects, of course we can have a discussion about this figure, but are in relation with pesticide. In relation, I mean that some projects are working, let's say, in legume breedings, which is not directly targeted to pesticide, but could have an impact on the change, on redesign of cropping system, and then in consequence, pesticide. That is, let's say, 140, more or less 348 million. Among them, we can find around 100 projects that are more clearly directed on focusing on research for developing alternative solutions to pesticide. Let's say 248 million euros have been allocated to this project during these two framework programs. If we go inside those 100 projects, we can see the strong evolution between FP7 to Horizon 2020. We saw that the biocontrol, the project devoted to find biocontrol solutions are the main part, even if the digital and machinery topics with robots, for instance, increased quite a lot last Horizon 2020 program. Going into the results, we saw how many projects are producing breakthrough innovation in several domains when they combine fundamental and applied research. And I think it's very interesting to know how they are rooted in fundamental research, even if they are targeted to pesticide reduction. However, we have a lot of projects that aim to find one solution to one pest. And very few projects on integrated solution, even there are some. Okay, let me go now to what I want to say about paradigm shift. Here are some examples of new field of research that offer new fronts of science: microbiota, plant-plant interaction, chemical ecology, ecological economy. All these new ideas are making constitute the background for this new change in paradigm. What is a change of paradigm? I quote the definition of Thomas Kuhn, that is a change in the way of thinking about or doing things that is replaced by a new or different way. And what is an exciting idea is when he says one paradigm change, the world itself change with them. So that's quite an exciting idea. So what we are talking about is a paradigm shift in crop protection. That means thinking crop protection without chemical pesticide. And we are convinced that it's necessary to have this shift in research if we want to have a sufficiently strong reduction. That are the goals of our policymakers at EU or national levels. So what does that change to set a pesticide-free goal for researchers? It forces to move to systemic changes. It forces to put prophylaxis as the main objective. It allows to go further in the search for disruptive solution and breakthrough innovation. It implies to consider the need to combine the advances in the different disciplines and to mobilize the social sciences to understand how to unlock the system. And this leads to major change in research priorities in all the disciplines when you say that. Some challenges are cross-cutting the different domains, I mean from agronomy, from genetics to social sciences. And we identify four main challenges. So first one is to prioritize natural regulation because it is the first, it's the core of the idea of protecting crop without pesticide. And that should be done but by working at the landscape scale, and that should be done also by finding, instead of generic solution, tailored solution. It is kind of conditioned to work like this too. And of course, to analyze the required transition of the value chains. I'm going to, in each of those 4 ideas. So the first one was working on natural regulation. For instance, that means to focus on interaction of biocontrol solution with other agroecological practices rather than with pesticide. To understand and manage the interaction among genotype, microbiome, soil, and agronomic practices, increase diversification, develop new breeding strategies, and I guess that I'm sure that my colleagues that will have the presentation after me will develop some of those examples. Here you have three illustrations. This one is on resistant grapevine from an INRAE National Observatory to support the deployment of new grapevine disease-resistant varieties, and it shows what is the potential of in the use of resistant grapevine. This grapevine allowed to reduce the use of fungicide up to 90%. Here, this is an example of the Cassis platform that you're going to go to visit tomorrow, that show the potential of introducing flower beds at the edge of the field. It is the platform Cassis INRAE. And this is from the European project Remix. The idea here is to show the importance of selecting species or varieties not only for their own performance, but for their ability to coexist and to optimize the interaction among crops. Second point, I said that the second one is to think at landscape scale. Pesticide-free agriculture cannot be convinced without managing the spatial heterogeneity of landscape, the design of mosaic of cropping system. So here also there is some examples. For instance, this one is from a paper of on the idea of odorscape, which means the interaction through odors between insect and plants. And what it is interesting is to reflect about what this can be used in terms of potential way of controlling insect if you consider the way you will modify the insect behavior by organizing differently the interaction between cropping system and natural habitat among the landscape. This is to stress the fact how important it is to implement a new epidemiological surveillance mechanism to enhance prophylaxis. And by thinking not only what is clearly in the field at a concrete moment, but to include long space and long distance, and long time in the reflection. And this is from a paper recently published from the people that are leading the Beyond project. If you want to know more on that, you have a poster outside about this project that will explain more than me what is in this idea. Third idea that is necessary to have in mind when you look about pesticide-free crop protection is to move to tailored solution. I mean, because the solution are necessarily are based on natural regulation, more dependent of the environmental and local conditions. That means to change the way to design those solutions by bridging farmers' experience and scientific knowledge, by designing machinery, for instance, that are not only adapted but adaptable to a range of pesticide-free systems, by implementing participatory breeding to obtain varieties that are defined by seed-specific condition or practices. And last but not least, it's very important that research engage itself also in working on the value chain and on public policy. That means to better understand what would be the condition, for instance, for the deployment on biocontrol, if we're talking about the strategies of upstream company. Here you have this success story about trichogramma that is here, but what it illustrates, the success story is not expanded to all the good ideas that we already have in the lab, from the way to the different options that biocontrol can offer. Because to go to really adoption of this solution, there is a real need for development of a new business model, which are clearly different from the current strategies conceived for massively used pesticides. It is not the same business model for companies that want to develop those type of solutions. This illustration, I just copy-paste from the Diver Impact project, which I find interesting is to underline here is the idea of this issue of diversification. Clearly, register a range of innovation, not only at the field level, but also all along the chain, and mean a change in a lot of things in the value chain, but to the consumer. And it also has to include and to think in what could be the relationship with the changes in diet and the food consumption also. And the last one is just to underline the importance also to work on policies and as a research, of course. It's mainly a research topic for social scientists, but social scientists have also to work with other scientists to reserve to innovate in terms of policies also. This illustrates the issue of a pesticide tax. If we impact of a pesticide tax, if we considered the risk aversion inside the behavior of farmers. Okay, so I think I'm out of time, but this is my last slide to say that we are on the way. We are clearly on the way of taking this path to research on a new paradigm. This is clearly the willingness of the European Research Alliance. And as we told already, we have this national program with 30 million euros, 10 projects. They have all posters outside that you can have a look on. We are expecting impacts in different types of innovation that those projects are working on. So you have here the list of ideas of what would be produced, I hope. And just to conclude, I would like to stress the fact that changing a paradigm doesn't concern only the topics addressed by researchers, but also the way research is done. So we have to think, and that's a point that is clearly discussed, how to change the way to interact with end users, stakeholders, and so on. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Florence, for this interesting paper on this paradigm shift. We now have time for some questions from the audience. There are 2 microphones that will circulate on either side of the room. Please do not be shy. I do have a question in the front over on the left.
Thanks very much, Florence, for the great framing of this complex issue. I also like the idea of the new paradigm, which is quite you explained that well, a massive change in the way we think and approach the problem. To which extent is that paradigm change or shift also including other topics at stake, like climate change, related resource degradation, biodiversity issues? Do you think with focusing on pesticide-free agriculture-related issues covers automatically the other ones as well? Or are they part of the paradigm shift?
Of course, it is a very good question. I think yes, but we have to work a little more in order to develop your idea. But when When I say, for instance, that we have to work, well, the different point I will work could apply, for instance, for carbon sequestration change. We have to, and it is maybe something that I should have had in my presentation, is that it is something, well, there are two things well, maybe one thing that is missing in my presentation clear is the issue of climate change. We have to incorporate climate change in, and we have also to incorporate the other objective, let's say the carbon neutrality. But to my opinion, this could be the common way to go. I think that well, to my opinion, it is a new paradigm for research. Maybe we have to design other new paradigm for the other objective, and this probably would bring a more complete super paradigm.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we have another question on this side as well.
Yes, a second question is a bit linked to the first, pesticide-free, but what about other inputs? I mean, fertilizers, but not only fertilizers. We know that for the last 10 years, other input like product we call biostimulant, for instance, has been used. How do you stand, and how can you develop the use of those additional inputs?
Well, okay, there is clearly a link with fertilizer, because there is because the fertilizer, the use of fertilizer and pesticides are clearly linked to very intensive input intensive system. So thinking to changing pesticides will necessarily obliged to think to the other input. To my opinion, the answer to this question is easiest to the one of Frank Evert, because in this case, it's very clear that if you consider to reduce pesticide, if you consider to think towards pesticide-free, it will necessarily change the way you consider the other inputs.
Okay, thank you. I believe we have time for one last question. Up at the top over to the left, there is someone that has a question.
Thank you very much, Florence. My name is Yao Yun. I'm from INRAE Dijon. I have two questions. One, first, very little one from your page number 14. You have mentioned about pesticide tax, and there is a welfare. I'm just wondering what is this welfare refers to? And second question, maybe more interesting in this conference, because you were mentioning this new paradigm change needs a multidisciplinary cooperation and also transboundary innovation. I'm just would like to read it out loud, like to talk about the responsibility distribution along this innovation and to where it starts, like from your solid and very holistic research, where do you think it needs to start, like the responsibility and the initiation? Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. I think the welfare on the I don't remember exactly what was. It was probably the farmer income or farmer welfare, which is a slight definition, but the paper is published. So I will recommend you to go directly to this paper. And I'm not sure I completely get your second question. Can you say it again?
Like to this new paradigm shift, what is the, from your perspective, what is the responsibility distribution along this shift? Like to where do you think it should start? Like who initiated? From which disciplinary? From whom? Policy?
Okay. This is a very good question. Sorry, I didn't answer. This is a very good question. I think this is a very good question, and we can consider that the first responsibility, we consider that even it may be, no, sorry, we're going to try to be clear. Okay, everything is linked. We can consider that it is a policymaker problem. Basically, that's the reason why that we already do have a lot of solutions, a lot of research results, and that we need a more efficient policy to encourage farmers and all the other actors to change their strategy. We can consider that, and maybe I would say that the more strong responsibility is in the hand of the policymakers. But as a research community, we have also the role to be the first one, maybe, to show the road, to say, okay, we will not stay here and wait. We show the road, and we show that it's possible to bring new paths of research.
Okay, thank you very much.